Dr. Kennedy-Moore, how would you define the concept of self-control?
Well, a lot of times when people think about self control, they think of forcing themselves to do something unpleasant. And that's really not a useful definition. The way I think about it is it's about being able to choose to act in ways that fit our values.
Hmm. Okay, choosing ways to act that fit one's values, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, values are like a really interesting thing. So, just for, I guess, some context, like how many core values does a person normally have? Like, are they making choices based off of like one main core value, or is it like, let's say, two, three, four plus core values?
I don't think it's useful to think about how many are there
Hmm.
because it could be small choices or bigger choices. Like maybe we want to be healthy, but that has so many sub choices underneath it that um,
Hmm.
I think it's really about thinking, what is it that you want? What is it that matters to you? And how can we set up the environment to make it more likely that you're going to do the things that matter to you?
Got it. Okay, so yeah, it seems like it really comes down to like putting yourself in a position where you're surrounded by like a certain environment or certain people that kind of exude the type of character, personality, energy that you want to, I guess, live by as well, right? And we'll definitely talk about that because, like in your blog post, like you mentioned many different ways on how you can get better at self control, and we'll talk about curating your environment. So that's pretty interesting. Now, when it comes down to self control, like, do you think it's more nature or more nurture?
It's both, and it's also choice. So
Hmm.
it is certainly harder to have self control if we're the kind of person who tends to be impulsive. And self control is something that we learn through practice. So it's both. But we also make choices about this is what matters to me. This is where I'm going to put my energy. And so it's kind of all of the above.
Okay, so it's like a mix of both, right? Like you'd say, I mean, obviously, some people, if they're, I guess, a bit more impulsive, if they're a bit, I guess, naturally more, like reactive, it might be a little bit more difficult to practice self control. But again, it does come down to a mix of both, right? Okay, that's pretty interesting.
And also
Hmm.
autonomy. We choose. So it's not like, well, my parents didn't teach me how to self control. So, that's it. I'm
Just give it
doomed,
up. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
we make choices.
yeah.
Yes, we have agency.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now when it comes down to the nurture aspect, like this is something that's quite I mean, like to me it's quite cool. Like what tends to happen in a person's, I guess, childhood and younger years that leads them to becoming, naturally, I guess, more better at self-control or worse at self-control? Like what tends to be the practices or like different events that take place that can, I guess, go in either direction?
So adults love the story of the little engine that could. So the engine is huffing and puffing up the mountain saying, I think I can, until ultimately it gets over the mountain. And this is such a wonderful story. And parents are like, yeah, I want my kid to do that. But
Hmm.
this is not the right model because the relationship between effort and success has to be learned. So if a kid has put an
Mm.
effort and never experienced success, never experienced those efforts paying off, they're not going to do it again. Why would they? That would be dumb. So what we want for our kids is many, many, many experiences of a little bit of effort leading to a little bit of success. And over time, they will become brave enough to do more effort and achieve more success. So it has to be learned. Also, the strategies
Mm.
for how to help ourselves make decisions that fit our values as opposed to a momentary impulse, those can be learned as well.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So pretty much, what you're saying is like when you nurture a child, it comes down to helping them like stack up like these little small wins that show them, hey, if you put in a certain level of work, you will get a certain level of success, right? So like there was a study a while back that said that kids tend to be much more, I guess, intrinsically driven and like motivated when you praise them for the effort rather than things that they naturally have. Because I guess effort kind of correlates with, hey, I can actually change this, right? And that leads to a growth mindset.
Right. That's Carol Dweck's work. But I
Yeah.
think that has been diluted down so much
Hmm.
that people say, oh, effort is the only thing that matters. But effort without strategy is stupid and demoralizing. That's me. I'm
Yeah.
saying that
No, factual
because,
statement. Factual statement.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we want to make sure that our efforts count. And if kids are
Yes.
putting a huge amount of effort on something that's not going to pay off, they're just going to get discouraged and give up trying, when really what they needed is the combination of both effort and strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's similar to, like, for example, if you want, like bigger legs, but you're just doing bicep curls all day. Like, you're putting in effort, but you're not putting it in the right area. So you're not going to actually grow where
Exactly.
you want to grow. Right. So
That's
that's,
right.
that's extremely important. Yeah. So, in the modern day, people tend to struggle with self-control quite a bit. Right. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously we have, I guess, the quite obvious ones, like we're surrounded by like abundance of stimulation, right? But like
Right.
in general, like what are the different things that lead people to really struggling with self-control in the modern day?
So obviously our devices are hypnotizing.
Yeah.
So they can pull us in, and we've all had the experience of, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this time passed while I was, following link after link or
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Hmm.
I think another thing that gets in the way is social media and those curated images that can make it seem like, oh, they're all doing it perfectly and I'm not, I'm a loser. So that can lead us
Mm.
to the all or nothing thinking, which gets in the way of progress. Um, so those are two obvious ones. I think sometimes another one that can get in the way is people are often less connected now than they were in the past. There's an epidemic of loneliness among adults. There's less involvement in community groups. There's even less involvement with family, because people tend to disperse and move away. So all of that leaves us kind of alone and not with this sense of, okay, I belong, I'm part of something bigger here.
Hmm. Okay, yeah. So it seems like, social comparison and like empty stimulation that tends to kind of, I guess, take up a lot of your time, and also feeling disconnected, right? This is obviously a really important one, because I guess when you're feeling disconnected, you're not like, you don't feel like anything that you do matters, right? So it's like, what's the point
Exactly.
of even
Yes.
practicing self-control? Like, who cares? Like if it comes down to eating healthy, like why? Like, what's the point? Like there's nothing, I guess, that you're emotionally connected to, right? So yeah, like when it comes down to community and feeling connected, like what tends to be the best type of community that tends to get people to finally start, I guess, wanting to practice self-control? Like if you had to say, if people want to feel that connection, where would you tell them to go, or like what would you tell them to do, like how to approach this concept?
Well, I think the first thing to understand, and I actually made AI create a little cross stitch image for a family member of mine who needed to
Mm,
hear this, which is that we don't get any extra points for doing life the stupid hard alone way.
yeah.
Right? We can build on things together, and it's more fun, it's more satisfying, it's more meaningful. There are a lot of ways that we can engage others in enhancing our self control. One is just to talk about our goals. So I'm going to try to work on this. And when we make that public declaration to
Yeah.
other people, they're going to be like, say, how's that going? And of course, they can't really do anything if we're adults. But
Hmm.
it's that
Hmm.
little pinch about, oh, well, I told him I was going to do that. I guess I should try to do that. Um, Another one is it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. So you can, if you know somebody who is farther along towards whatever goal you have for yourself, ask them for advice, ask them for tips or feedback, and use that information. Let's build on each other's knowledge rather than just saying, oh, I've got to figure it out all by myself. And a third way that we can
Mm.
get social support to increase our self-control and help us meet our goals is to involve other people in what we're trying to do. This might be joining a group that everybody's working on whatever it is, or it might be just inviting a friend to do it, or to be an accountability partner that let's check in, once a week, and or let's I'm going to meet you at the gym at 8 o'clock. And like for myself, I would never let a friend down, but I could skip working
Yeah.
out
Yeah,
myself.
it's hard. It's hard to do that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so it seems like, talking about goals, and asking for help, not trying to, I guess, let your ego get in the way and say, no, like I know everything, like for the answers, like I will figure it out. And then also involving other people. So it seems like, having a common goal and involving other people and just being a part of a community that's chasing that same type of goal together, that tends to get people to really, I guess, find themselves in feeling connected, right?
It makes it easier.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess like that's why people tend to be really, like for example, sports, building a business together, making things together, like that tends to be really fulfilling because I guess you have this shared common goal that you're all working together to achieve, right? That's
And you have
mhm,
connection, which is one of our fundamental needs.
connection. Yeah, like it's pretty interesting because like this kind of comes down to the concept of having meaning and purpose in life, right? And oftentimes in the modern day we try and look at purpose like, oh, who am I, like, who am I really? But I guess historically it's always been like, who do I belong to, like what
And what can
community,
I
what group?
give? What can I
Yes.
give? Yes.
What? Okay, what can I give? Yeah, so when it comes down to giving something, like if people wanted to really, I guess, go down that route as well, what would you tell them to do in terms of like how can people give? Because many people, they view giving as like giving money and stuff like that, right? But many people, they, I guess, they just don't have the extra resources to go and give to other people. So what are different ways that people can also do that? Because that's extremely important.
So I think it's a matter of bringing yourself to the situation where your time and talents, and presence can matter. So sometimes when we think about giving, we think of these lofty things. Oh, I started a nonprofit and wherever. But most of us are
Hmm.
not going to do that.
Hmm.
At the same time, as we're wandering through life, we can brighten up somebody else's day. And there's actually research that conversations with strangers lift our mood. And it can be just a lovely thing. Or there's another one. This one I've been doing a lot lately, which is to give a sincere compliment to a stranger. So you're just walking
Hmm.
around and you say, "Oh, what a pretty dress," or whatever it is that they're
Uh-huh.
doing. And I expect nothing from this because I don't know this person. I'm never going to see him again. But I just gave that little compliment and moved on. And, it brightened the person's day. Um, and like I'm nobody to them, but it was just a lovely little gift as they're walking along. Um,
Hmm.
we can, just small things about if somebody's carrying something heavy, or if we're on the subway and somebody else could use a seat more than we could. There's a lot we can do to just spread kindness in the world. And is this self-control? Maybe it's choosing to act in ways that fit our values.
Hmm.
Of course, we
Okay.
can also be present for our friends. If we know a friend is working towards a goal, we can think about how we could support them. And that if we're living with them, it might mean, setting up the environment so that it's easier for them to do that. Or maybe we're going to take on the same goal too, so that they can have some company in their journey. Or maybe it's just about talking to them and being with them and being interested. How is that going for you? Uh, there's a lot we can do
Hmm.
to show up for others.
Yeah, great. Yeah, yeah. So it seems like the main point like really comes down to giving people positive energy, right? Because
Yeah.
oftentimes the more positive energy you give other people, the more you get back yourself, right? Because like even when people smile, like that makes you feel good, right? Because like you
Right.
genuinely made a difference in, I guess in their life for those few minutes at least, right?
Exactly.
And yeah,
Exactly. And there is
yeah.
a helper's high that feels good. Yeah.
Helpers high. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, yeah. I've heard of that. I've heard of that. Yeah. So yeah, it seems like volunteering could be a great way to practice this as well. Like just volunteering time in like different organizations, right? So like you don't need to like necessarily start something yourself, but I guess if you volunteer at like a Red Cross or a nonprofit, again, like that helps you feel useful as well, right? Because like you're giving genuine good energy to people, and like again, like it's all about feeling useful and feeling like you actually matter in like this social dynamic of life. You know what I'm saying?
And it's also
Mm-hmm.
about not thinking that it's all on my shoulders. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody, a little bit of effort from everybody can really add up.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So obviously, like we're talking about definitely, you know, uh, getting connected with people and constantly interacting and just making sure that you're just being a good person, give people a positive energy, right? And this kind of ties back into one of the points that you mentioned, um, which is about setting up your environment in a way that actually helps you practice self-control, right? So what does that actually consist of? Like when we're talking about your environment, what should people think about? Like, is it what they read, what they look at? I guess obviously who they're spending time with, but how do you curate your environment in a way that actually helps you practice self-control in the most effective way possible?
Well, it really depends on what your goal is. But as a general rule, environmental control is always easier than willpower.
White knuckling, as
Right?
you call it. Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't want to have something be super hard all the time, because
Mm-hmm.
then at some point we're going to collapse. So depending on your goal, let's say that you want to eat more healthy. Don't have Oreos in your cupboard, like
Mm-hmm.
it puts that little bump about, if you really want Oreos, you're going to have to, get your shoes on and go to the store, and like, do you really want it? So it slows it down and makes it more likely that you're going to have to eat the carrots and hummus or whatever it is that would be a healthier choice for you. Um, if you um, let's say you might also want to have some reminders. It's easy if you're um, spending a lot of time on your laptop or wherever. You could set a little reminder that says, "Oh, it's 4 o'clock. I need to do whatever it is and stop this." So you're using the environment to trigger something. There's research on something called if-then plannings, and it shows that if we make a plan along the lines of, if it's 4 o'clock, then I'm going to do whatever it is, or if I come home from work, then I'm going to do whatever it is. If we have those plans sitting in our head, it makes it more likely that we're going to follow through. If I get distracted, then I'm going to just turn my attention back to the thing or put that away or whatever it is. So the plans, the reminders can help. If your problem is getting lost in the internet, you can use a productivity app to make it harder for you to do that. Yes, I know you can go and undo it, but you're putting a little speed bump towards the bad behavior or the undesired behavior, and making it more likely that you're going to do the thing that you want to do. So there are a lot of things. You can also like lower the barrier to entry. Um, like I know
Mm.
for myself, if I don't work out first thing in the morning, I am not going to do it, because once I open my laptop, it's all over.
That's it, eh?
So,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah. So I have to just make a rule for myself. I'm not allowed to open my laptop until I've done at least a short workout. So depending on what's going on. Um, or maybe the thing for you is, when you come from home from work, go straight to the gym, as opposed to coming home and you know lying down on the couch, and then, well, you've made it harder for you to do
Mm-hmm.
the thing that you want, or go straight to wherever it is that you want to do. So you're working with rather than against your momentum. My number one tip for college kids about studying is that after your last class, go directly to the library for 2 hours. Do not go back to your bed, your bedroom, because the vortex of your bed will suck you in. And
Yeah,
you're
and
not
you'll
going
end
to
up
study.
sleeping on it.
Exactly. But if you put those
Hmm.
2 hours in at the library, you will never be badly behind. It may not be all the work that you need to do, but you'll never be badly behind. So think about working with
Hmm.
rather than against your momentum.
Oh, okay, great. Now, one quick question: like, do you have any productivity apps that you would recommend to people just based off of your experience, or can people just, I guess, use whatever they want?
There's always new ones. Freedom was a really good one, but I just heard yesterday that
Freedom.
it's out, it's no longer working, so that's sad.
Really?
Self
Hmm.
control and focus are other ones, but if you look up productivity apps, they're always coming up with new ones, and
Got
the
it.
one that's
Okay.
good is the one you're going
Hmm.
to use.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. Yeah, like it's pretty uh interesting because people always talk about like how your environment is more important than motivation, right? So like that narrative has kind of changed because like I guess in the past it's always been about like willpower and being tough and just like not giving in, right? So like, but why is environment so important? Like what makes it such a pull on the human mind, and why is willpower not the most like effective approach to take when you're trying to, I guess, change a behavior?
Well, we have to make choices. So it's not like it's just the environment and I'm sitting here a blob being
Yeah,
influenced.
yeah,
I'm making
yeah.
choices about what my
Hmm.
environment looks like and how can I set it up to make it more likely that I'm going to do the things that matter to me. A reminder on the calendar could be that's self-control, because I have decided that's what I want to do. Um, I think there's kind of a myth of this tough person who can do anything under the worst circumstances, but that's dumb. Why do it under the worst possible circumstances when you can make it
Mhm.
easier for yourself? And it's possible that we could white knuckle it through a single task, but that is not sustainable. If we set up the
Mhm.
environment so it's easier for us to do the things that matter to us, if we have a standing appointment on Wednesday to do the volunteer thing and we just tell ourselves that's not optional, if that's what our goal is, or we have the Thursday night, no matter what, I'm working on that business idea that I have, and I'm going to have a phone call with my friend, and we're going to really hash this out. Little bits of effort really do add up, and they're more sustainable than the heroic,
Yeah.
under the worst circumstances kind of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like who's Bruce Lee?
Yes,
Yeah, so he has this like really popular quote where he's like, long-term consistency like will trump short-term intensity, right? So like,
exactly. I love
yeah, like it's
that.
the same
Yes.
concept that you're talking about. 'Cause, again, it's always about like, like the whole thing is about doing it for life. Like if you want to make a
Yeah.
like an actual change, there's no point in just doing it for 2 months and then end up having like a mental burnout or like a physical
Or you
burnout,
just
and then
can't
now
keep it
your
up.
health is
Yeah.
compromised. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or you're not getting to the other important things in your life. So
Hmm.
I've written 10 books, 10 traditionally published books. And I
Hmm.
started when I was a young mother. And little bits really do add up is the key to my whole career. Like when
Hmm.
I was a mom with young kids, I didn't break any speed records for my writing, but I got it done because
10 books.
little bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
it's
mean 10, but
doable.
that's wild. Yeah. Yeah. 10 books. So like when did you write your first book?
So my first book was for mental health professionals and is called Expressing Emotion, Myths, Realities, and Therapeutic Strategies. And it had
Hmm.
47 pages of references, and that's the last time I did that. So, um, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
the
Mhm.
comment on the book was that it was too conversational. And I thought, well, I can either try to be more pedantic or I can go in my natural direction and be more conversational. And then I started writing books for parents. And then I wrote some books for kids and more books for parents. So it's been fun. Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll link all of that down below so people can go and like check it out if need be, right?
Yeah.
So,
If you go to
yeah. Mhm.
eileenkennedy-moore.com,
Yeah.
Eileen Kennedy-Moore.com, and go on the books page. You can see all of that.
Yeah, I'll link that down below as well. Yeah, so speaking of willpower, right? You mentioned don't try and like stop a behavior, right? It's much more effective to find a replacement.
Right.
So
So this
what
is the
makes that
idea
so
of
effective? Yeah.
this is the idea of work with rather than against our momentum. So you know that law about a body at rest remains at rest,
Yeah,
body in
yeah, yeah,
motion.
yeah. Yeah.
So we want to harness that. That's physics.
Uh-huh.
But usually when we have a behavior that we don't like, there's some reason why we're doing it. It's meeting a need, it's solving a problem. So if we can come up with a different behavior that fits our values more or fits our goals, then it will be easier to transition to that than to just, stop cold turkey and, just, I don't know, tie ourselves up and be mean to ourselves. So what
Yeah.
could we do instead that's going to meet the same need or solve the problem better than whatever the old behavior is? That's really useful to be thinking about.
Now, when it comes down to finding a replacement, like how do you know what habit you should choose? Because does the habit you choose like have to be somewhat similar to the one that you've been doing before, or can it be something completely different? Like how do you find a right replacement? You know what I mean?
It really depends on what your goal is. So it's
Goals, yeah.
not, and you have to, with self-control, it really requires self-knowledge. So what are your temptations? What are your distractions? How can you eliminate those or make them a little bit harder to reach? What are the things that you like doing? How can you pair that with something that's a little unpleasant, with a self-reward? When I was doing my dissertation, which was a long time ago, do you know those Ferrero Rocher little round candies? Those are
Ferrero
so
Rocher.
good.
If I see a picture, I'll probably see it, but like the name doesn't, like ring a
Okay.
bell.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's got like this crunchy outside and then gooey inside and a little hazelnut in the middle. So after I put in a good whatever time on the dissertation, I would get one of those. They got me through.
You're treating yourself. You're treating yourself.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be something that would work for somebody else. It's what's going to work for you. And we can also harness in the motivations that aren't necessarily pretty, but work for us. So again, when I was doing my dissertation, I would say to myself, Eileen, if you don't finish this, you will be Mrs. Moore for the rest of your life. And then, because I'm Dr. Kennedy-Moore.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, is this a pretty motivation? No, but it got me moving, so good enough.
Yeah, but most motivation comes from there, though. Like, many people try and act like, oh, it's all about positive energy, but most people are driven by like some sort of like aggressive energy, right? Because we're humans and like we tend to be quite competitive, right? And like that's what gets that actual energy. I'm obviously positive energy is great, but like if we're talking about competitive energy, it comes from that place, right? I know people don't like to talk about it, but it's a factual statement.
So like, and use that deep self-knowledge for what's going to get you moving. So a lot of times, like one important strategy for self-control is how we talk to ourselves. And sometimes people do some really vicious self-talk. And I'm against that. You're like, oh, you're a loser. You can't do anything right. Everybody's going to find out what a fraud you are. I don't like that talk, because you wouldn't say that to a friend. So sometimes people who are perfectionists think that they have to like beat themselves up or they're not going to accomplish anything. And that's not true. That's not what the research shows. Perfectionism actually gets in the way of productivity because it makes it harder for us to start, to continue, and to finish. And it's so unpleasant. Let's just avoid that. If we can
Hmm.
be more gentle with ourselves, the way we would with a friend, if we can focus on progress, not perfection, that can be really useful. Also, I
Hmm.
think so a lot of times people have heard the idea of do your best. And I don't think that's that useful because not everything deserves our best effort. And what I think is more useful is to talk about doing a reasonable effort. Sometimes good enough is good enough. So think about, and also if we really care about this, then maybe we need to do like a so-so effort on this other thing. Like there's a
Hmm.
limited time and energy. Where are you going to
Yeah.
put yours? And I think that perfectionism or nothing thing really stands in the way of progress.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to that concept of long-term consistency will always beat short-term intensity, right? So just having
Exactly.
the right amount of effort and doing it for a long time is much more effective than, as you said, I guess, just doing your best, because that can definitely lead to burnout, right?
Right.
And exactly. Yeah. So I do want to cover a few of the things that you just spoke about, because you covered a lot there, which is really important. But just to go back to, I guess, changing a habit by finding a replacement, would it be okay if I just like name, I guess, two or three examples that people might struggle
Sure.
with, and like just
Okay.
to see like what kind of like replacements that they can find, right? Just so it gives
Okay.
people more clarity. So for example, let's say if you struggle with alcohol, right? What is a good replacement for that? Because I know this is a major problem for a lot of people.
Right. So there's a lot of things that we can think about here. One is find a different drink. Like if being in the bars or whatever is a big part of your social life, you might want to try say, oh, you're going to do an iced coffee or whatever it is, and only
Hmm.
alcoholics care what you're drinking. So that would be one possibility. If you find that doesn't work, then you may need to change the environment and decide, you know what, the bars are just not a good place for me because it triggers behaviors that I don't fit my goals right now. So maybe you're going to join a kickball club or a running club or a volunteer activity and hang out with people there. Maybe you're going to start dinner parties with your friends where you're more likely to where you make a nice dinner, go around to different people's apartments and do that rather so you're not in the bar. That would be another possibility. And still another possibility is hang out with people who don't get trashed. And that makes it easier for you to make decisions that fit your values.
Hmm. Now, when it comes down to choosing a drink, like, is there a certain criteria that you should be looking for? Because I don't know if, like, for example, choosing water, I'm not sure if that's gonna make much of a difference, right? Like, is there a certain type of drink or type of taste that you should be looking for, just so that you can kind of, I guess, like truly find a replacement and get away from alcohol that's obviously been affecting your life in not
Right.
so positive
I
ways.
think it's you know you. So
Hmm.
if the alcohol feels like a treat, what else would feel like a treat? And you're like, oh, I
Okay.
like drinking that.
Yeah.
If it's the sugar you're craving, get a lemonade. I mean, it's really what appeals to you. If it's just having something in your hand, um, then do something like that. Do a Diet Coke or I mean, whatever it is that feels okay to you. I don't think we can figure it out. It's really about you
Individual
using
basis. Yeah.
your self knowledge. Yeah.
Hmm. Got it. Okay. And then you mentioned, obviously, if going to a bar is like a major reason to why you drink, you might want to avoid going to the bar and then go somewhere else, right? That reminds me, like, have you heard of that study of the like U.S. Army vets that were like addicted to heroin in Vietnam, and then when they came back to the U.S., like they didn't have a problem with heroin because they got away from that environment that was, I guess,
Yeah.
somewhat connected to their heroin use. Like, have you heard of that study? Like, that was a
I
really
have.
interesting study. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
another thing to think about is if you're not ready to go cold turkey, maybe make a rule for yourself about I'm only going to drink one. and stop there. And tell all your friends, I'm only drinking once. So now you've made a public commitment to it. Or tell the right friend who's going to be supportive. So it's just useful to think about. There are a lot of options here.
Yeah, so like cutting back slowly and stuff like that. Okay.
For some people, that's the right answer. For some people, that isn't. I can't tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably know whether you need to go cold turkey or whether just slowing down a bit is going to help.
Absolutely. Okay. And then something else. Now, this might be kind of R-rated, but how about like for porn addiction, right? Because again, that's also a big problem in our modern day as well, right? So like if people want to get away from that, because like that tends to be something that, is somewhat like a drug. Obviously it's not like heroin or crack, but in a way, like people do find themselves getting really addicted to that. So like if they wanted to, move away from that, how can they replace that?
So this is not my area of expertise, and I know that there's controversy about is porn addictive? Is it a compulsion? I think it's at the minimum it's a compulsion. There was somebody at my husband's company once upon a time who got fired from a really good job because he was looking at porn at work, and it was a tech company, so they sent out a notice every week saying, don't be doing that. And he did it anyway. So I don't think that was a choice. I think that was minimum a compulsion, maybe addiction. I don't know. Not my field.
Got it.
Like any habit, you want to think about what are the circumstances that are most likely to trigger it. So, you might want to do something else instead. Like if it's usually in the evening, then can you be somewhere else? Can you, let's say it's in your bedroom, maybe leave the laptop outside of your bedroom, or maybe go out for a run at that time. Maybe put
porn
more
blockers.
effort. Yeah, porn blockers is like, make it easy on yourself. We don't have to do it the hard way. And let's also think about the need. Maybe you need to put more effort into meeting real people that you'd like to date. And so creating, what are your values? What are you aiming for? How is this going to bring you closer or farther from where you want to be in your life? You could also even make a list of, why am I doing this? And, why do I want to cut back? And you know what matters to you. You know the statement that's going to matter, and like stick it on, above your bed, or, inside your laptop, or, somewhere where you're going to see it. And have to read through, make a rule for yourself. I have to read through all the list of 47 reasons why I don't want to do this before I'm allowed to click on anything. And maybe that's that speed bump that will slow you down a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then something else that you mentioned was like, talk to yourself in a healthy way, right? Now, here's the thing with self-talk. Like many people actually struggle with self-talk because they feel like they're lying to themselves.
Then like you're doing it fake. Wrong.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. So how do people practice self-talk in the right way?
Right. So you're fantastic. You're amazing. Like that feels very false. So you really want to think about what's going to make sense to you in those difficult choice moments. Whether it's something not that pretty, if you don't finish this, you're going to be Mrs. Moore, or if it's something like, as soon as you're done with this, you get to do that. Come on, you can do 5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes. Maybe it's like a pep talk like that, or maybe it's something like, hey, you've done hard things before. Remember how you did that, and it was really difficult, but remember how good it felt afterwards. That could be useful self-talk. Or another one is just delay. for 15 minutes. Come on, you can delay it for 15 minutes. What are you going to do while you're waiting? And sometimes that can be the speed bump that helps you to do that. Or sometimes it's like, oh, okay, just do this one thing. So the small barrier to entry. Okay, you know you can do that. That wouldn't be hard. Okay, come on, just the small thing. That might be more effective self-talk than you are a special person kind of nonsense.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. So basically you're saying like find a way to base it on realism, right?
Yeah.
So
What really matters to you? What are you going to be able to hear? You know you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So small goals in that case are really effective because like you can always do like one small step, right? So like that
Exactly.
doesn't feel fake, right? So like you can kind of talk yourself into doing that, and then obviously using past wins, past evidence of you being able to overcome certain things that won't feel fake as well. And then you mentioned just make sure you keep in mind, again, it comes down to how your mind is going to react, but understand obviously, like in your case, like you don't want to be Mrs. Moore, like you want to be Dr. Kennedy-Moore, right? So obviously talking about that, it'll give you like a realistic reminder of what's to come if you don't engage in certain habits. So, okay, that's pretty interesting.
Right.
So just
So
base it on
what's your
realism.
motivation? Like really
Mm-hmm.
tap into why do you care about this?
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, sometimes it's useful to just list 47 reasons, or however many there are,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
read over them when your motivation is lagging. It's like remind yourself, okay, I really need to do this. This really matters to me. And yeah, so there are a lot of things we can do to get ourselves moving. But
Mm-hmm.
notice that none of those were about the you're a loser
Yeah,
kind of self-talk.
yeah.
That
It's more
is
about challenging
paralyzing.
yourself.
Right. It's mean.
Yeah.
So one useful strategy is to think about what would you say to a friend in this circumstance and try to talk to yourself
Mm-hmm.
at least as kindly as you would to a friend.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's great. And then you spoke about making sure you focus more on progress over being perfect, right? And then if you're trying to be a perfectionist, it tends to actually really backfire and then you end up going nowhere really, right? So like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So can you go a bit deeper on that? And then like, what's the line between, for example, let's say like a sloppiness and compromising being perfect for, like consistent progress?
So there is a difference between
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism and healthy striving. And we can see this at an emotional level. So perfectionism feels forced and painful. Healthy striving feels energizing. Perfectionism feels like it's never good enough. And healthy striving allows us to see progress. So perfectionism makes us miserable. Healthy striving feels satisfying and enjoyable, and it fits our values. It's not forced from the outside. So we don't have to beat ourselves up because perfectionism often thinks, well, I either have to beat myself up or I'm going to be a slug lying on the couch. But to
Mm-hmm.
go to the other end of, well, how do we know we're not just being a slacker? That has to do with tapping into our values. Doing a barely adequate job in some areas might give us the energy and the time and the headspace to put our energy into something that matters to us. Not everything has to be, do your best on it. Some tasks do not deserve our best. And also, those little bits really can add up. So, are you a slacker or are you getting there? Well, I think we see the progress. Um, if you're not making any progress, well, maybe you want to think about, is this the right goal for me? Because maybe it's not the right goal. And that's why you're avoiding it. Or maybe it's you need better strategies to get going. But if you're, chugging along, that will inspire you maybe to do a little bit more effort and keep going. So those little bits really do add up. We want to make it the difference between 0 and 1. That's the
Mm-hmm.
hardest.
Yes.
to just get moving. So there's always new studies coming out about how little exercise makes a difference. And a lot of times when we think about, oh, I should work out, we're like, I'm going to spend 3 hours at the gym every day. And well, life happens. You're probably not going to do that unless you've got nothing else going on
Yeah. Or you're
in
an
your
athlete.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you're on a team and like the coach is telling you, and like,
Yeah.
then you could probably do that. But if you've got a full-time job and you've got maybe family obligations or other things that you need to be doing, that's going to be harder to do. So, but if you do some exercise, that's better than none. I had a client once. She was a high school girl, and she was beating herself up about my this is too big, my that is too small. And I'm listening and I'm listening. And I knew her pretty well. So at one point I said to her, do you think I should quit my job, stop seeing clients, stop writing books, stop doing my podcast, and just focus 8 hours a day on my abs? I'm sure they would look a lot better if I spent 8 hours a day on my abs. What do you think? Good idea? And fortunately, she laughed. And I said, how do you know I am not going to do that? And the answer is because it's not my values. Like I do work out because I want to be healthy, but it is not worth 8 hours a day. I'm not going to devote my life to my abs because I have more interesting things to do.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah, so it really comes down to, I guess, working backwards from your goals, right? And then the sloppiness factor is, just checking in and seeing, I guess, how many
are
of
you
those
making progress?
little habits. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Now, here's the thing. When it comes down to, in this case, changing a habit, right? People always have like different timelines that, they tell other people in terms of how long it's going to take. Do you think that's healthy in the first place? And second of all, like, what would you say? Like, how long does it normally take for a person to, I guess, see meaningful results, right? Because oftentimes seeing results helps a person stay more motivated. So if they're trying to practice self-control and get rid of a certain habit and obviously change that, how long would it normally take if you had to just, I guess, give people an answer?
Well, I don't know. There's stuff on the internet about a 30 days or 90 days or
21.
I don't know that I believe any of that.
Oh, really?
So I think if you're trying to change a habit, try to get a quick win, because that'll be motivating. Well, I got that done, can feel really good. You could even write down your wins so that you can see the progress. And if you're feeling discouraged, it's like, okay, well, I did that and I did that and I did that. Okay, I'm getting there. Maybe the progress is not as fast as I'd want. It never is, right? But I'm moving in the right direction. And then think hard about strategies. So I think plans are more important than goals. Because like the goal is that shiny thing at the end. And it's easy to sit on the couch and think about the goals and fantasize, wouldn't it be great? But I'd rather have you take one step in that direction. I'd rather have you, take one step, then the next step, then the next step, and see where you can get. And as you make progress, you might find yourself feeling more motivated, or you might get new strategies that are going to accelerate the progress. But that's more useful than just thinking, I'm going to be great.
Yeah. So like, it seems like you're saying it's much more effective to focus on the actual routine. For example, if we're talking about working out, rather than focusing on the end result, just focusing on doing the right things in the process. Like, is that the difference between the plan? Like actually doing the routine versus
what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to set up your environment to make it more likely that you're going to do whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to recognize progress?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And like, what do you mean by that? How are you going to recognize progress?
Well, I mean, we keep going to the exercise things, but
yeah, it's like a good metaphor.
Right. Write down your weights. and see it. Or I take an art class, which I absolutely love. And after every session, I take a picture of whatever I've done so far. And if we look at a very wide angle and we see where we are, where we were last year and where we're going to be next year, we'll probably see a line upward. But if we take a magnifying glass and look at the line, it's going to look like this, because not every day is going to be better.
Yes.
But over time, if we stick with it, if we use good strategies, we build on success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like if you've been, trying to go and achieve a certain goal, and if you don't track the progress, like sometimes you don't actually recognize how far you've come, right?
Right.
Because it seems like you haven't really gotten anywhere, right? So tracking the progress, yeah, and then that's probably a reason why people, I guess, tend to quit quite a bit in our day, because we're so focused on the goal.
On the
on the
lofty
goal.
star. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had there was a young girl in my art class one time, a teenager, and she was going on about, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm so bad at this. And finally, to be honest, she got on my nerves. And I turned around and I said to her, it doesn't matter. Like wherever you are right now is a dot in time. If you keep going, like keep practicing, keep getting the feedback, keep learning new strategies, you're going to get better. So I think that that's a really important orientation about, don't decide I'm good or I'm bad right now. It's focus on progress in the areas that matter to you.
God, yeah. So again, it all comes down to focusing on who you are and like what your main values are, and then working backwards from there, right? Because obviously, like in our day of screens, many people tend to kind of choose their goals based off of what other people want as their goals, right? And then you kind of realize, for example, if you're talking about schooling, many people go down certain pathways and fields that they don't really want to go down, but they're going down that path because of a maybe a certain type of influence in their life. And then they realize, hey, like I'm not even operating from my inner spirit. And like that tends to crush them even more, because like you spent so much effort trying to go down this path that doesn't even mean anything to you. Right. So self-analysis is really important.
Yeah. And there's also, we have to be anchored in reality also. Like there was, I was on a writer's listserv once, and a guy was complaining that he couldn't support himself with writing. And somebody said, well, what kind of writing do you do? And he said, oh, I like to do this, I forget what he called it, but this radical political stuff, and nobody wants to pay me for that. And I have a lot of colleagues who do support themselves with writing, but most of them are doing content creation for corporations. So, and then they do other things that they really enjoy. But there's got to be kind of a balance between what I want to do and what I need to do because of the real world. So this guy was an adult, but he sounded kind of like a teenager to me, because it was like, I should be able to get paid for doing this. And it's like,
you're funny. Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
So if you are in a job that you have, chosen for economic reasons or opportunities or whatever, maybe you should completely change your job, or maybe you should say, well, that's what I'm doing for money, and this is what I'm doing for meaning. There's, or
so separating the two.
Yes, it's like there are a lot of ways to lead life.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dr. Kennedy-Moore, we're slowly closing in on our hour here. But one of the main things that we spoke about today was obviously understanding yourself and then operating from there, right?
And using your values to motivate you.
Exactly.
And then setting up the environment so you're more likely to move in the direction that you want to go.
Exactly. Now, this is a problem for a lot of people too as well, because like many people, again, we spoke about earlier, they feel like they're not connected to anything, right? And many people, they don't really understand what actually matters to them, what values actually matter to them. And so much of it is because, maybe they're told so much of what to do. And obviously we're surrounded by screens, right? So you're always like outsourcing your thought process to something else. You know what I mean? So like, how would you help a person, I guess, self-analyze it and actually figure out, okay, what matters to them? Because this is a huge problem. Like, no one knows where to start. I mean, obviously not no one, but like many people don't know where to start because they don't know what actually matters to them. So if you had to give people, some guidance on that, how would you help them?
So some of it is paying attention to your own feelings. Like when you hit on something and you think, this is really satisfying. I'm enjoying this. I want to put effort into it. And I'm willing to keep going so that I can become better at it, or, build the thing that I want to build. Those are important clues. If something just is like, you're dragging yourself into it, that's an important clue also. Now, we have to pay attention between, or distinguish between, is it just a temporary lull, or is it more long-term thing? Because we're not always going to be singing show tunes. That's okay. That's not the goal. But I find that one thing that really interferes with people hearing their own voice is what I call the magnet myth of friendship. And this is the belief that I have to be so amazing and wonderful that I draw friends to me the way a magnet attracts metal. This is a myth. This is not how friendships and relationships work. If you're looking for that, wow, you're amazing reaction, you are not looking for friendship or real relationships. You are looking for fans. And guess what? Your peers don't want to be your fans. Yeah. So this whole idea of trying to be impressive gets in the way of hearing what really matters to us. And I would say, what can you give to the world is important. What do you want to learn? That's an important question. And what groups or causes really speak to you? That could be a useful question too.
Yeah, those are all great. Again, it comes down to understanding, hey, like what can you do now to really give to the world? And as you mentioned, understanding how your spirit responds to certain stimuli, right? And again, the only way to get that stimuli is to go and try and really taste different things. Because if you don't
I'm
do
so
that,
glad that you said that, Chuck, because there's only so much you can learn about yourself sitting alone in your bedroom.
You can't just think about it. Yeah.
Right. You really will learn more by getting out there, interacting with people, trying things, being willing to be bad at something. Just see what it feels like, and whether this is something that resonates with you. And then you can put more effort into it or spend more time on it.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Kennedy-Moore, this was a great episode. Thank you so much. Honestly, I could, talk about this for another hour or 2 hours. It's a really good topic. I think it's really important. So thank you so much for what you do. This was a great episode. It's really insightful. And I know it'll help people, especially as time goes on. And if people wanted to go, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if they want to learn more, you can check out my website, EileenKennedyMoore.com. And there are over 100 articles, videos. The books are there also. And the biggest joy of my work life right now is I have a little podcast. It's 5 minutes. It comes out every week, and it's called Kids Ask Dr. Friendtastic. And what's interesting about it is every episode features an audio recording of a question from a kid. And then I try to say something practical and thought-provoking and hopefully research-based. But the number one reaction I get from people is, oh my gosh, this applies to adults. And it really does. So I had a kid who asked a question once about, How do I not feel guilty about saying no to friends? Like, that's something adults deal with all the time, right? So my answer for her was that say a reluctant yes is kind of like saying to your friend, okay, I'll do that, but then I'm going to hold it against you forever. And this is a bad bargain for both of you. So resentment is poison in any relationship. So a thoughtful no can actually save your friendship. So, but there's so much that we're all constantly learning about getting along with other people. And I just think it's really interesting. And it's fun to hear the kids' questions and think, that has parallels with adults.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you send me all those links, I will link all of it below and people can go and check it out if need be. And it'll be great. It'll definitely be great.
Great.
Okay. All right, Dr. Kennedy-Moore, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
No problem. Take care now.